So we're already at a point here in this simple demo application where we need a control structure, a feature built into Go that allows us to run different code based on different circumstances. In this case, based on the choice made by the user. We want to add some code here where we, for example, output the current balance if the choice was 1, or where we ask for further input and then increase the balance if the choice was 2, and so on. And we can therefore add an if statement here with the special built-in if keyword. And the idea behind this if statement is that you now add a condition after this if keyword, and you then define the code that should be executed if that condition is met. For example, here we can check if choice is equal to 1. And what's important here is that you use this operator here, the two equal signs. Because one equal sign is used to assign a value to a variable like this. When having a condition and you want to check for equality, you need two equal signs. You need this operator. Now, if you had a second condition that should be met, you could add two ampersands here and then add your second condition. Though, of course, here, for example, I would have two contradicting conditions, which could never be met both at the same time. But you can also check for two alternative conditions by using two pipe symbols here. This means that either choice should be 1 or it should be 2. But in this case, it's pretty simple. We just need one condition here. And therefore then, as a next step, we add the body of the if statement by adding curly braces. Opening and closing, just as we did it with a function, but now with an if statement. And now the code inside of this body, so between those curly braces, will only be executed if this condition here is met, if it produces true as a value. Because the result of such a condition will actually be a value of type Boolean. And you could therefore actually also outsource this into a separate variable if you wanted. For example, once check balance could be a name, and the value would then be the result of this calculation, of this operation, this expression here, where we have this check. If you now hover over once check balance, you see that the type is bool, which stands for Boolean, which is one of the built-in types Go offers, which is a very simple type that's just either true or false. So where strings can be any kind of text, int can be any kind of integer number, bool can only be true or false. And you could now simply use that here as your condition, so that if this is true, if it contains true as a value, which is only the case if this condition is met, otherwise the value is false, but if it's true, this code will be executed. Now, typically for short conditions like this, you would add them in line with the if statement, and you would not use a separate variable, but I still wanted to add this here so that you do know that you can store the result of such checks in variables and that you will get a value of type Boolean. But with that, we have this if check, and we can therefore now tell the user what their current account balance is. So let's tell users what their account balance is. For this dummy application, I'll add a new variable here at the top of the main function, let's say, which we can name account balance. And let's say initially that's 1000, because it's a dummy application. It's a demo application to learn about control structures, so let's say this is our account balance. Now this is now inferred to be of type int, because this is an integer number, and that might not actually be what we want. Because I do also want to allow users to withdraw or deposit amounts like 5.5. Therefore, we should either override this inferred type by adding the type we want, float64, after account balance, or by adding .0 here, so that the inferred value is float64. And that's the approach I'll go for. Now with that, we can then go back here to this if check, and if the choice was 1, so if we want to check our balance, I want to output our current balance. So we can print this here in a new line and say your balance is, and then output account balance. With that, if we now save that, we can run this application and now choose 1, for example, because that's the only option we support at the moment, and I therefore get this output. So that works, and if I now choose another option, let's say 2, we don't get that. And that's how if statements work. But that's not all we can do with them.